would just like to wish everybody a very good morning and a warm welcome to our problem solving and creativity taster session, which is what it says right there. And we can probably stop sharing that screen if people would like to see me and Fraser in a minute talking. Why wouldn't you? So we're recording. Thank you, Fraser, for laughing. So this we're recording today's session, so you might have noticed that. So hopefully that's okay with you. I'm Rachel Caswell. I'm a senior analyst in the strategy unit, and I lead on our new training offer. And today's session, we're going to give you a really good sense of what we're going to be covering in our one-day problem-solving and creativity training workshop. So this is all about giving you lots of information about that session, so you can decide in fact if that is for you. And to do this, I'm going to be chatting to Fraser Bassey in a minute. We'll find out more about Fraser and what he's been up to shortly. He leads this training workshop, but if you have any questions at any time during the session today, please pop them in the chat and or shout out. I think you're able to put your hand up, and we've created a nice space at the end to answer your questions, but we will, if it's okay with Fraser, we can pick them up during the session as well. So let us indeed get started, and I think we're going to start with Fraser. Would you like to say a little bit more about you? Maybe include a little bit about the strategy unit and what all this training malarkey is about.
It's probably easiest to start with the unit. I mean, not everyone will know us. The strategy unit, if you don't know us, we're an NHS team. We are dedicated to improving the quality of decisions that are made across the system. And we do that in different ways. We do it primarily through the production of technical analytical outputs, evaluation outputs, evidence reviews, that kind of thing. But we also do a lot of work to help people apply the results of that kind of exercise. So we're interested then in strategy production, decision making, training programs, all of those good things. That's probably enough about the unit. There's plenty on our website if people want more. In some senses, my background actually marries that in some ways. I spent 20-something years doing research and evaluation work in public policy across all areas, not just health. I ended up doing work in health because I found health interesting, and I still do. But for the last 5 years or so, I've not really done any research or evaluation. It's mainly been about decision-making, helping people with decision-making processes, improving the quality of their decision-making. And in the main, that has meant doing a lot of training and development and leadership development work. That's probably enough about me. And I'm the head of policy at the unit, so I'm primarily interested in the application of the work that we produce.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Fraser. So I'm now going to ask you just a few questions to help everybody here understand a little bit more about the training itself. That's why people are here. Is it something that they want to invest their time in? Is it something they would like to invest their money in? So I think it's really important for people to really get a good steer about the relevance of this training for them in their role. So first question really is, I'm very interested to know about sort of how the training came about in the first place. So why? What's the story behind this training?
There's probably two ways into it. I think the first way kind of continues what I was saying, actually. So the first way is that I've been leading our work on decision making and helping leaders and teams and organizations and systems just figure out what better or worse quality decision making looks like. And as part of that, one of the messages we're really keen to emphasize is that the quality of decision making really does hinge upon the quality of the process that people use to go through it. And it hinges fundamentally, and I think this is probably a more general point actually for the nature of the work that most of us do, it hinges on the quality of thinking within that process. So if you have a poor process and poor quality thinking, you'll be making poor decisions, and the reverse is also true. So we kind of we knew that was so. And then, of course, the next question that people would ask us is, well, OK, so what does a better quality process look like? What does better quality thinking look like? How do you help groups of people think decisions through. And so a lot of what we're going to cover in this course comes from that. So it's tools and methods and approaches for that kind of thing. So that's one way in. The other way in, which I hope no colleagues think I'm sort of doing our dirty laundry in public or anything, but is kind of is almost internal to the unit. So now when we do things internally, we are completely obsessed with methods and processes and approaches and tools and ways of getting all voices in and ways of making the most of the different creative inputs we could get across the unit. But it was, but Secret Alert, it was not always like that. We used to just get people together in a room and then we'd have a meeting, and it kind of never felt satisfactory. At least to me, it never felt satisfactory. It never felt alive enough. It never felt sparky enough. And so we, as a result of that, as a result of some of that frustration, we kind of just got into like, how do we make it better? How do we be more creative? How do we be more imaginative in what we do? So also in the training, there's a load of stuff that we use internally that I just think we can share.
Okay, that's really helpful. I think we might come onto it in a bit, but we're calling this training problem solving. You've talked a lot about that, and creativity. Now that there's and I think we've said you can learn how to be creative. So could you say a little bit more about what about this course kind of covers that? How do you teach people how to be creative, Fraser? How do you do that?
I mean, first of all, we'd need to spend some time maybe saying what we meant by creativity, but I'd rather not. I think that kind of thing kills it. You kind of know it when you see it, don't you? And you know it when you live it, when you're more stimulated, when you're more alive, when you're coming up with new things, in particular when you're in a group that is sparky and creative and interesting. I suppose the first thing I'd say is we reliably know to within an inch how to kill creativity because it's predominantly what we do. So most of the methods and approaches that we use in day-to-day working, I think, are almost designed to deaden imagination, deaden creativity, and to prevent people from being sparky. I think that's especially true when it comes to working in groups. We don't attend enough to group dynamics. We typically just let, the one person dominate, other people are quiet. We let social hierarchy rule rather than thinking about the quality of thought that's going on in the group. And so I suppose what we're saying is not, not that you can come and spend the day and by 3:30 you'll be Bowie or something. We know there's no advert that's like that. But I think what we would confidently say is that we can give you a set of practices and methods and approaches and tools and techniques that will help groups think better, reliably think better, and reliably be more creative and imaginative in the way that they think and the way that they act. Yes, I think that's what we could say.
That's really helpful, and sort of having had some experience of the types of tools and techniques and approaches that you have trained people on in the past. I think it's that giving that basically a framework or an approach to something which you think is a bit fluid and you think how can this be that you can have something which can give you a really solid approach to something, and yet it is very creative. It has all of these other characteristics as well. So
I guess just on that, I would just to underscore the point. I think the bar is low. Like I mean, my starting point for a lot of this is not that if we looked across health and care organisations and teams and activities, I don't think we would characterise it by its extreme creativity or its extreme innovation in thought or its extreme sparkiness. I think we would typically characterize it almost the other way around. So in a sense, what I think we're trying to do is just sort of correct some of that balance and just add a little. Some of this is quite modest tools, techniques, approaches. Just add something to that process.
Yeah, I think they are very accessible. So from what you said so far, can you give us a sense of who would benefit most from the training? And some of that is from the people who've been before, and this is just simply who you think would be would benefit from what you are able to share with them.
I mean, kind of almost if I go back to where I started in terms of the frustration that and I know other colleagues felt in the strategy unit in our meetings, if I sort of thought that we would probably be a good candidate for this kind of thing, then I suppose what I would say is that anyone who works in teams and who feels like they could get more from their teams, anyone who has to think in groups and help groups through processes could benefit from this. In particular, anyone who thinks that they need to help groups to be slightly different sometimes, to be a bit more sparky, to be a bit more inspirational, then I would say that. So, I mean, that's probably a lot of people, isn't it? I mean, these could be people who design services, who run services. They could be strategy people. They could be service people. They could be program people. They could be analysts. They could be leaders of organizations who want the whole organization to just think a little bit more interestingly. They could be managers of teams. I mean, that feels like really quite a broad net to me. We will cover in the session tools that are more analytical, as it were. But that doesn't mean that, you know, there won't be a spreadsheet in sight. What we'll be interested in is thinking analytically. How do you take problems apart? How do you understand their components? How do you think about the likely success of a course of action, for example? So it's not a course for analysts as such, but it has got plenty of analytical thinking within it.
Okay, thank you for that. So sort of stepping back a little bit, we obviously want all of our training to be incredibly useful and incredibly relevant, and we spend a lot of time thinking about both of those in terms of the topics we cover and how we deliver the training. Specifically, what do we, well, I suppose, do we know what employers want? Do we know what skills they want? Do we actually know, Fraser? Do we have any evidence of that?
Give me 2 seconds.
I'm challenging you, aren't I?
Well, be as challenging as you like. This is good. Whilst I'm trying to find, I've got a slide or two on this. Whilst I'm trying to find that, if people could imagine what they think the top skills that employers really demand are, that would be helpful. They could start to join me on this. So, Rachel, can you just see a big blank white screen? Can you?
I can.
Excellent.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I mean, so I think the first thing I want to do is just sort of dispel a little bit of a myth. If we were to think about, if people say the word creativity, and in some respects it's a helpful word, and in other respects it's an unhelpful word, people might think it is the sort of primary school style splurge of stuff. Or I mean, or I've mentioned Bowie, they might associate it with extreme genius in the arts, for example. But really that's not what we're talking about today. When we're talking about problem solving and creativity, we mean it in a different sort of way. The question of what employers might want is a kind of bridge to what people would, I imagine, think of about as being an extremely uncreative organization, which is the World Economic Forum. I mean, if Bowie springs to mind when you say creativity, the World Economic Forum is very, very far down that list, isn't it? I doubt you'd even get to it in this lifetime. Anyway, so here we have the World Economic Forum Future of Jobs Report 2023. What they did here is it's a global survey. It's across all sectors. It's across all countries. The data I'm going to show you applies at that level, but if you go through the annexes, it very, very much applies in healthcare. So this is things that employers say they want in healthcare. Anyway, so here are the results that I think are particularly interesting. These are the top 10 skills of 2023 that employers are saying that they demand. I mean, it's kind of interesting just to get a little flash look at it. One of the main things that you're looking at is cognitive skills, is the ability to think clearly, think creatively, and look at the top 2 skills. This is global stuff, and this also applies in healthcare. The top skill, analytical thinking. The second skill, creative thinking. So this is what employers are saying that they demand. Currently, they're saying is the most important. The next question: what do you think is going to happen? Which skills do you think are going to be most highly demanded? Which are on the rise? And just watch what happens to the top 2. Creative thinking and analytical thinking, all they do is swap places. Neither one of them drops out of the top 10. Interesting to me also that systems thinking turns up, which it actually informs quite a lot of the tools that we're going to do. So the strongest signal you're going to get that this is what the labour market is demanding. This is what employers are after. These 2 things. Okay, so if that's what the labour market is after, if that's what employers are demanding, there's a question then that occurs for me is, Well, first of all, are we cultivating these skills? So if we say creative and analytical thinking are the top 2 skills of the future, are we cultivating them in our teams, our organizations, and our people? And to the extent that we are, how are we doing it? Because there have to be better and worse ways of doing that. So I suggest if we don't have answers to that kind of question, then I mean, this is the kind of thing that this course is designed for, and that we will certainly do more on. Sorry, that was a long answer, wasn't it? But you did give me the opportunity to share some slides. There we go.
Yeah, I will do that. Yeah, so, no, that's really helpful, and it's very reassuring. Obviously, we've done our homework. We know about these things, but it's very reassuring that it chimes with these sort of huge global employers and what they're looking for. And I'm sure that wouldn't have been the case. We didn't look. I'm sure that wouldn't have been the case in the past.
Huge global surveys, but we could also say from our experience, what is going to differentiate candidates applying for jobs that we're advertising? Creative thinking, analytical thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. So these are key skills which we can help people to develop. Yeah, that's really helpful. The other thing is to give people a sense of what the day looks like. Fraser, they're going to be spending a day with you, so it's just trying to give people a sense of we've covered some of. We're going to come on to a little bit more about what people will learn, so they can sort of go back to line managers and say this is directly relevant to my learning plan, whatever that may look like. But can you give me a sense of what the day looks like, and how you kind of how you conduct the training? Presumably you have a plan.
Of course, I've got a plan. I'll give you this, but I will be quick now because again, I'm afraid I've popped it on a slide for you. So,
that's fine.
And again, you can see the question. So, how are we cultivating these skills? Okay, excellent. So, another question for people just to hold in their mind. When we come to the task of unpicking and attempting to solve problems, how do we normally do it? So in your day-to-day work, if you think you're going to go into a process of trying to approach a problem, understand it and solve it, how would you normally go about it? And this is my way into showing you what the flow of the day is like. Because I think the problem-solving process has to go from something like this, where you kind of maybe you have data, maybe you have information, some evidence of some sense or some tingling in your gut, something is not right. And you're going from that to having some sort of agreed solution. And my question to people is, well, what populates that middle bit? What typically happens? I'm going to be suggesting a process that I've used to actually structure the day with as well. And the process is going to be something like this. First of all, I think you should be using a set of tools and techniques which are all about exploring the problem in divergent terms. So just expanding out our understanding of what this problem might be before coming together in more convergent ways to define out what that problem might be and to say, okay, that's the problem that we face. And so the morning of the session is going to look at how you explore and define problems. And then in the afternoon, how do you explore what possible solutions might be and how do you create what those solutions might be such that you end up on an agreed solution? So many of you will know this. This is the Design Council's Double Diamond process. I think it's brilliant. It's so, on one level, so simple, but in other ways, so rich. And we're going to use that to structure the day. So we will have tools and approaches for exploring and defining problems, tools and approaches for exploring possible solutions and deciding on what we're going to do. So that's how we'll do it.
Thanks, Fraser. And I think we've talked about the approach being very much sort of hands-on, and you want people to get a real sense of they know how to do this stuff, or they know where to go to fine-tune their skills and everything. So this sort of practical learning by doing and not sort of by sort of an exam or whatever. So I think that approach has worked well in the past.
100%. I mean, the stuff that we will cover, you can imagine it's the strategy unit, is sort of relentlessly grounded in theory and all, and of course we've done the homework, but the program itself is relentlessly practical. So it is all learning by doing. And one of the criteria that I had for what tools and methods we would include is that they can be handed over in minutes. So by the end of it, you can have and do these things.
That's really that's very helpful to know. And we keep the class sizes relatively small so we can have a high level of interaction. And we know that people really value sort of talking to colleagues from different organisations and teams. However, it does work well with a single team and organisation. We know that too. So a tiny weeny bit sort of over my allocated time for this part of the session, but this is absolutely fine because I think people would quite like to know what are they going to learn during the session. What are they going to come away with? You touched on this already.
I will take your very strong signal to be quick. They will come away with a good broad process for approaching problems and solving them. Particular tools, techniques, and methods for being creative and imaginative and innovative as they're doing that, as well as analytical whilst they're doing that. And so therefore some enhanced sense of confidence in their own ability that they can lead themselves and other people through that kind of process. And I'll send them some pretty looking slides at the end of it.
Main thing. Not a metaphor in sight, I imagine.
Almost certainly.
So, and really, we have a couple more minutes. Everybody is interested. They want to know the relevance of this to their own work, and sometimes with a topic like this, you have to sort of almost think outside the box in terms of making it relevant to your own work, your own team, your own organization. And certainly people will be wanting to be able to explain to other people the relevance of this training to them, maybe the team. So really, so you kind of just, you've suggested we've covered what they will learn, they will take away. But I suppose it's that application in any idea of how you would explain to somebody how they would then be able to apply this, in a very direct sense, immediately in their sort of work environment?
Yeah, probably two ways. I mean, the first is that, as I say, I've kind of chosen these tools and methods so that you can then just do them. So we will introduce a method, introduce a tool, give it a go, and then, without much of a pause, anyone coming would then be able to use that tool and method and approach. There's a straight, unbroken, direct application of it there. But there's also a broader one that I was thinking about, which is that the value most of us add in the workplace is through the quality of our thinking. And helping people to see that and helping them to improve that and helping them to bring out the best in the people around them and the groups they work in, it's probably that as well.
Incredibly valuable. And really, so this isn't the first outing for this course, and in fact all elements of it have been sort of covered in different guises, in different sort of training that you've done over the last few years. Do you have any feedback from others, maybe who've been on this course, who have found it useful?
It's the first public outing of this course. We've never shared it in this way before, but I've run it several times with other different groups who brought us in to do it. The feedback, no one's left the room, which is good. I mean, you might start with that as a benchmark. Everyone has been engaged all the way through these days, through these programs. It is slightly distinct. It's a bit different from what they would usually be getting. The other thing, program and with all the others that we've run, we've got, which is bizarre in a way, a 100% I'd recommend it to a colleague rating. So that means that no one has clicked no on that on that barometer. So people tend to enjoy it, and they tend to say people like me would benefit from it.
That's very helpful. So I've now worked out that the questions are in the Q&A thing that says Q&A and not in the chat. Which is absolutely excellent. I am the pro, and even better, I've got somebody who's really good at editing videos, because we'll be sharing this recording afterwards. But there's a couple of questions, Fraser, that we can turn to now. One of them is from BD, and who says, how would you vision the double diamond technique being applied practically? Will you use scenarios, case studies? So would you like to respond to that?
Yes, that's excellent. So my attraction to the double diamond is that it is uber practical. It's very well grounded in theory, etc., and so are all the tools that we use, but it is uber practical, and all the tools that we use are matched to different points of that process, And all of those tools are uber practical, so it kind of can't get more applied in that sense. In terms of the application through the session, we will apply them all to particular scenarios, particular questions, particular problems, so that you get to try them out live and in anger, as it were.
Thank you. And just one further question before we sort of start to draw to a close and help people to decide if this is for them with some, I'm going to be invite you to do some final comments in a minute, Fraser. There you go, pre-warning. So someone says, how, for you, practically Fraser says, you haven't got much time to plan that. How has your experience been in using creativity in data analysis as decision making is increasingly data-based? So data-driven decision making is what we're all about, but it's not as simple as that, is it?
Very nice. So if let me try and get this right. If people definitely wouldn't think of the World Economic Forum when the word creativity is mentioned, the next thing they wouldn't think of is analysis. So people wouldn't typically associate the craft and the practice of being an analyst with this thing called creativity. And yet I think I would make the argument that the thing that distinguishes the very best analysts from just generally very good analysts is creativity. So the best analysts I get the pleasure of working with are those who can imagine questions, who can think how analysis might apply in particular circumstances, who can work with decision makers to understand their world and understand. They can do the active empathy at the front end of analysis. They will then pretend there's nothing creative about doing analysis. I don't quite believe them, but maybe. And then at the back end, communicating the results of analysis. Again, the top bit of that profession is all about communication and helping an audience into technical specialist material. So I think that is one thing. And Gordon Stobin from Worcester and I are going to be doing something very particular on creativity and soft skills for analysts as well, because we think it's so important.
Yeah, it came out of it comes out of everything. It's always there as something that people want more of. It was certainly something that came out of Hacker. I know you did a session in Hacker focusing on soft skills, making them hard, I believe. And yeah, so there's the need, the appetite is there, and people are really realizing how important that is in this decision making process, because you can have the best evidence, the most wonderful analysis, but if you aren't able to tell somebody what it means and what they should do with it, then it won't do what it needs to do and have the impact that you want it to have. It's all about the impact. So we're hit at 10:30. So I'm sure I've missed something off, but that's absolutely fine because I've just said it is. And Maciej has put on our final slide to say thank you so much everybody for coming along today. If you've got any further questions about this course or any other courses, just you might may or may not realize that we're sort of this is the strategy unit training is new. Most of the content and all the experience that we have isn't, but we just sort of we haven't packaged it together in a beautiful website yet. There will be other courses as well, but we're starting with this one, and the next session of this is the session on the 6th of November. So if you've been tempted by what you've heard and seen today, do go and sign up on the Eventbrite. And got any further questions, then please just get in contact. Thank you, Fraser. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And hopefully we'll see you again very soon.
Thank you very much.